Right, so, okay guys, can we just concentrate on what we're doing instead of what's going on in Fallout? We've done a couple of little skill building exercises. The first one we did was looking at different versions of state. We had a look at session state, view state, and what? Application state, very good. Can anyone tell me what the differences between the three are, but is not Alistair? Because he doesn't know. So what's the difference between the three? Where does application state live?
It's not the layers of what they're like.
It's everything. It's all the different people connected to that program. Session state is on the server, and it's everything that is just for that one person running on the server. View state is just on that page. So there's three different layers. Was it literally the week before half term? We went through a piece of HTML. What was it called? I can't even find it on mine. JavaScript drag, I called it, I think, which we could drag different. I showed an example of being able to drag one box from another, etc. That's my broken one, if you like. But you could show you how you could drag from one window to another. Today, I'm going to show you how we can use JavaScript and ASP.NET together, so that you can use JavaScript to send information to the server. And we're going to do this in two different ways. It's quite complicated. Let's start with the fact that it's complicated, as Tom will probably be able to tell you, because I've already done quite a lot of this with Tom already on his project. So let's start with a very, very simple and straightforward form. So in your web project, of whatever form you've got in Visual Studio, we're going to start by creating a blank ASPX page. You can create a brand new project. You don't have to do it in your own web project. I've obviously got a web project already set up, so I'm going to create a new. I'm doing where I did my state experiment.
What should we call this?
I'm going to call this Java server. Let's call it Java server, because we're going to use JavaScript and some server-side scripts in the same code. So it's a web form we're trying to do in a web project. It's called Java Server ASPX, and there is absolutely no way you can read that from the whiteboard. That is ridiculous. That's the problem, having an HD screen and HD settings, and then a whiteboard which is running at 1024 by 768. It's all switched. It reminds me when I used to use a pair of virtual reality glasses and used to try and read the screen. You just couldn't. What's that? I don't know if Okay, so we're going to start with something really, really simple. That's fine.
Apparently.
Right, so you're going to add a new web page called javaserver.aspx. And what this web page is going to look like and do, we're going to add two very, very exciting controls. Okay, so I'm going to go to design mode, and I'm going to go into my toolbox. And I'm going to add a label and a link button. With 5 spaces between them. The link button, I'm just going to write the words "click me." And then I'm just going to double click the click me box and say label1.text equals hello world.
What are we naming this one?
Okay, so
okay.
you'll see I've got a label, a link button called click me, Double click on the button and you just set the label text to say hello world. Just run it to check that you've got it working. Work. You've got it all sorted. Right. Right click in there. Up there, one more. Add. New item. Web form. Call it Java. Call it Java server.
A link.
And then go to design mode. And the toolbox. Your label and link button. Just right click me on the link button. And when you double click the link button, it's going to be one line code. Here's web page. Let's close it first of all. Let's open the solution. You've got the status bar. Label. Spaces. Link button. Words click me. So if anyone needs the code, I know it's very, very complicated code. I'll add it into another window so you guys can see it. There you go, you've got label one and click me and link button one.click, label one.text equals hello world. Once you have done that, we are going to run the program and just take a quick look at it. So I'm going to say, set this as startup page. And I'm going to open it in Internet Explorer because it's easier. And after it starts building, we have a really exciting web page that when I click the label, it says hello world. Has everyone got the code and everything done for the button?
Yeah, where we go?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just double click on the click name. So in the code. It's label, say text, just that was jump. Okay, has everyone got the code? Because the next bit that we're going to do is more exciting. Well, it's not. But it is more useful. We're going to look at how this code actually works. So I'm going to reset it on my screen. And I'm going to go into the console, debugger, DOM Explorer. It's all here. And it's really clever when you actually start looking into how these things actually do what they're supposed to do. And it's all built using a bit of JavaScript. So if you look here, you'll see that Visual Studio, when you build an ASP.NET application, puts together a brand new div inside your code that you can put in yourself called, I can't read it on whiteboard, that's what it's called. It's called ASP.NET Hidden, and it's got three different things: event target, event argument, view state. And the view state is things to do with the the hidden information that's needed for the screen, for what's on the page, so that when it goes back to the server, it can re-render things. This would be things like which panels should be open and closed and visible, what should be written on the buttons, what should be written on the label. And you can actually take a look, if we look at the link button, what actually happens. If we go into the div, you can see this link button runs a piece of JavaScript called __ do post back link button 1, comma, with a blank event argument, click me. Okay, that function, that JavaScript function, has been put in by Visual Studio itself. As you can see, what it does is it takes the form.event_target.value, a hidden value, sets its event argument, and then submits the form. That's how this system works. Okay. What this does actually mean is that we could utilize the JavaScript that's been put in by ASP.NET to send information back to the server without actually having to do all this sort of double-clicking and putting code, etc., in the right places. So how do we do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to create a text box that we can manipulate using JavaScript, first of all. Okay. Then, when we do our post back to the server, we can read in the value in that text box, and we can then use that data in our server-side code, so we can send information from the client side to the server in that way. This is not the most elegant way of doing things. Until quite recently, it was probably one of the best ways of doing it, though. There is another system which I'm going to show you, which is called Ajax, which we're also going to go into in a bit more brief detail, which does this all asynchronously, and which means that it will send information to the server and get information back from the server without having to do that refreshing of a post back of the page. However, it is more complicated than this. So, how can we utilise this then? Well, let's start by putting our text box in. So I'm just going to close the server-side code at the moment. I'm going to add a text box, just like that. It's called text box 1. Very, very exciting. And I'm going to just then straight away run Internet Explorer just to double check what the identifier is for this text box when the code gets compiled, because it can change depending on if it's on a master page, a sub page, and all sorts of other things. Being that this is all just one page, hopefully, fingers crossed, it should still be called text box 1. So let's bring up the source, form, there's the div. It's called input name is text box 1, and the identifier, that's the important bit, ID, is text box 1. So that's great. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to go into my actual page, and I'm going to do some JavaScript. Okay. So the JavaScript I'm going to do is something very simple. Script type equals text JavaScript. Should automatically close the tag for you. Function hello world text box. What I'm going to do is document get element by ID called text box. We're doing this in the ASPX page itself. Value equals sorry? You're on the wrong source code. I know. Yeah, that's right. I've added that as well. So I've added all that script there, and then inside the get to the text box and hello world text box. Okay. Let me just So I save this so that you guys can see it. I'm just going to double check my JavaScript code works before going any further, because I want to just make sure that I've not made a mistake, because I've got a funny feeling I have. Yeah, it's not working. What's the console? What's happened here? Oh, because I have made a mistake. I thought I had. Let me just fix the mistake first. So, right, so there was a slight mistake just on the A on click equals hello world text box. I missed off the smooth brackets and the semicolon. But this will set the words hello world into text box 1. Very exciting, but it does it using JavaScript, so it's client side rather than server side. What we're going to do next is then send that information through to the server. I'll do that and get my Ajax code ready. Anyone wants to try and give it a go, so that when you click the A click, it actually sends it back to the server. What's in the text box as well. You have to try and yeah, sure. Yeah. Right, you should have up to the link one. You should have one way up to that bit there. Text box 1. It says just this A on click. Yeah, and one is then there's the text box. Yeah, you haven't got that either. Yeah. So, oh, yeah, that's there. It's just different colour. It's there. Yeah. Tom, is your code got Ajax in it? Do you know? I need to find one of my projects with Ajax in. I just wondered if that would be a good spot for me to find. So I can look through them as well. JavaScript. does, do they? What have I got? JavaScript. Projects. I was going to like separate it. Which one is this one? Nope, you didn't give much more.
Yeah, that can do that.
No, this is a dog.
Yeah, no, they do that as well.
This is a dog. Look, just won't leave you alone. Like the second night, I kept getting woken up by a dog licking my face.
Wait, your dog's name is Bob.
Bob.
Oh, Bob.
Instead of doing Monday and Tuesday, for instance, we have land.
Have we all got that down? Yeah? Yeah? Is everyone done that? If you run it, what happens?
Gets added to the text box.
Hello world gets added to the text box. So it replaces anything in that text box with the words hello world. Okay? Simple and straightforward. What we're going to do next is we're going to send this back to the server. So, first of all, on the web page, view code, link button 1.click. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change label 1.text to equal whatever is in the text box. Text box 1.text. Okay, so if I type in the text box, then press link button 1, it will put whatever's in that text box. At the moment, this is not going to do the hello world unless I click that button first. So for example, if I write the word rabbit in there and click me, it now shows the word rabbit. If I add text box, then click me, it runs the word hello world that I've added in there. Well, I'm going to do that programmatically in JavaScript, so it automatically then goes back to the server. How do I do that? Well, all I do is I'm going to find the JavaScript that's been put in by the link button. So there's the link button. It says JavaScript, do post back, link button 1. Now it's not going to let me actually view it because I need to view source. For some reason it won't let me click on it otherwise. So do post back, link button 1. Okay. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in the code, and 39 you don't need to worry about. Do post back, link button 1, link button 1, da 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 da. Okay. So what should happen now is, even though it's in JavaScript, it will actually post back to the server because it's now using the JavaScript that's been built in by ASP.NET, and should set the label to say hello world, all in one go. Fingers crossed. There you go. So one click on the on-click button makes the hello world appear in the text box. It then posts back to the server. The server then grabs it out of the text box and puts it in the label. This may seem like a really long-winded way of doing things. That's because partly it is. But it means that you can do client-side manipulation of your data structures, whatever it is that you want to do, and then send that information when you want to the server as a single big long blast of information. Tom uses this in his system, even though he's maybe not 100% aware. He's got a drawing package, and you draw using JavaScript, and it saves all the drawing that you've done as a long row of data. And when you hit the Save to Server button, it sticks that in the text box and then sends it all off to the server, and the server then reads it out of the text box. It avoids a lot of security issues that there might be otherwise trying to send it in another way. It also means that there's no limit to the amount of data you can actually send if you send it through a text box. So that's a form can have up to 2 gigabytes of data on before it then causes a problem. Whereas if you try and post it to the alternative methods that I'm going to show you in a few moments, there can be other issues in terms of length of size. Okay? Is everyone okay with this idea of how this is actually working and can see it all in the process? Yeah? Yeah or no? So I want to just go through again how this is actually working. And step through it bit by bit. Sorry? Is it not working on your screen? Which one? The code? That one? Right, all I've done, I changed it, say label 1.text. Oh, actually, I'll do it underneath. All I did was change linkbox 1.click to say so label 1 text equals text box 1 text. Okay. So look on your screen. That's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. That's supposed to change your any time in the text box, when you do that, that's what goes against that label.
Say that. We like to shoehorn into conversations. You need to share a lot of something. Whatever it is. So you can get synced up. Do it.
Yeah, you guys got it? Yeah? Anything straightforward? Is everyone okay, or is anyone needs some help?
Just about to try.
Okay, so try. So if you just Click on this as the plain text bar. Click the add text box button.
Student.ramp. No.
Oh, so
Even you
section
don't know.
Hello World text box.
Student.ramp from the AT.
That's the way you can just get one song in. How are you getting on that? You want to put this
That's because I'm spelling it.
you want to put that on your homepage.
Jimmy,
Underscore.
what's in space? I can use the lot.
Again, that's to
Get a gold skin.
Is it worth it? No, the others is orange stuff.
Okay, so put the hello world in there, then sort of refresh the page.
And a shotgun.
So it's put it in text box, post it back to
Oh,
the
sure.
server.
Oh, okay. And that will work for it.
Join what they like to do.
What's the pen would you like to do?
Student program from AT.
Ah, yeah, look at that.
Oh,
Is it not
Yeah.
no.
What are you trying to do?
Okay, so let's use methodology number 2. Methodology number 2 is a little bit different, and it's the way that a lot of PHP programmers work, i.e. the wrong way. No, it's okay, it's not a bad way of doing it. It's a good way of separating code and what happens on the page as well. And what you're going to do now is you're going to send data from one page to another using something called the query string. Now, you'll be all familiar with the query string, even though you've never probably heard the term used before. What's a query string? Nope, nothing to do with SQL. Let me show you an example of a query string. YouTube.com. Let's have a look. If I go to YouTube, and then I go to, oh look, we're live now. Let's have a look and see how many people are not watching this video, and then hear it with sound so it goes all funny. Can you see on this URL here, which is going to get really confusing and very Inception-like in a few moments, at the end of the URL, if we zoom in,
How many views do you have?
me, I'd have thought. Everyone else is here.
Or are we?
Or are we?
UX files, please.
Dun dun dun. That is what the URL is of my current video that is playing. So
We do any
section-wise, if you click on that link while you're watching this video, you'll go back to this video, but at a different point. And the query string is that bit there. No, it's not that. Oh, use the mouse. Okay, that bit there. Question mark marks the end of the URL. Everything to the right of the question mark is then seen as things to send through to the server as variable code. And these only form what are called key value pairs. So what you have is the name of the variable, an equal sign, and then the value that variable has. In this particular case, that is a unique identifier for the video, and video equals, or V equals, they use the short term V. You try and keep your query string as short as possible, because there is a limit to the number of characters you can have in an entire address bar string. So you wouldn't be able to send, say, an entire image. Yeah, it's usually not, but that's pretty much as long as it can go. Yeah, there are some very, very long addresses you can do. I mean, we're not saying you can't do long addresses. I think the maximum is something like 8 kilobytes of data, which is huge. But what we're saying is you can't send, say, an image in this way. You can send quite a lot of data, and it's really easy to pick up in your code as well, which I'm going to show you how you can pick that up server side. If you've ever looked at something called vCollege, which I'm sure none of you have, if you actually look at what vCollege happens when you're on a group, is using something very well, it is using query strings. So there's the vCollege one. It's got a question mark. ID equals, and what that is which group you are a member of. That's a unique identifier string for which group you're in. So if you really wanted to, you could just change that UID to another UID, and it would log you into a different group if you knew the other group's UID. However, there is security involved, so I do actually check to make sure you remember that group before you're allowed to see it, before someone gets an idea. But this is another aspect of something that we do need to discuss with this. There is an element of security that you have to consider. If you're using query strings, you need to make sure if someone can copy and paste that query string, are they going to do something nefarious? Yahoo Messenger used to use query strings to send messages to and from different clients, which meant that you could just change the client URL, change it to say it's from a different person, and you could send messages as if you were someone else for quite a while. We're talking back in the 90s, we're not talking now, obviously. But there are lots and lots of things you can do with query strings that you must be careful with for security reasons. So how do we use a query string? Well, going back into our program Java server, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, whatever's in my query string, put that in my label control. So literally, all I have to do in my code, which is down here, so I need to move it back up here so I can actually view it, is when the page load event comes along, if request.queryString, I say what the name of the identifier is. I'm going to call it ID equals does not equal null. Label one.text equals the value that that ID is. Okay, simple as that. So that's the key, the ID. And I'm just going to put, if I put question mark ID equals, whatever I put after that will then come up in the label one.text. We're going to find out the first issue that there is with query strings. So once you've got that in, if anyone wants to save that page as I go on to the actual page itself, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, on Internet Explorer, on my address bar now, question mark ID equals hello. And you will see the word hello now appears on my label. Wow, difficult. What happens if I put hello world with a space? That works. However, what happens if I want to say hello world and how are you? And I'm going to use an ampersand. And how are you? And maybe a question mark. Oh, it still only comes up hello world. The problem is, certain characters are special characters. The ampersand, the and sign, is used to separate different key value pairs. What that means is you can send more than one variable of information through to your code. So say I wanted to set both the text box and the label. Maybe ID is the label and TB is the text box. Text box one.text equals TB to string. To do that, all I have to do is use an ampersand. So if I now put ID equals hello world and TB equals hi again. There you go. I can set both the label and the text box in one string. But I have to use that ampersand to say I'm separating those two items out. What happens if I actually want an ampersand in my code? Oh, that's a tricky one.
Do we have to put a at sign before it always?
Close. Sound encoding. Well, I almost got it straight away. There we go. Where is it? It needs to be, yeah, %26. I can never remember what the number is. You have to use a number. You write a % and then a code. 26 is ampersand. The %20 is a space. You should actually not have a space in your URL. Some web browsers allow it, some do not. So if you want to have a space, you should really encode the space as %20. Looks the same, doesn't do any different. However, it is the proper way that you should do it. So if you wanted to put in hello and world, hello again, the code would look like that. So % in itself is a special symbol as well. And we get into a very, very complex set of HTML coding. There is actually a built-in library, which I'm not going to go into today, which can convert strings to and from HTML encoding. But obviously you have to be careful because you actually want that to be an ampersand in when you're doing your encoding, so that's why I'm not going to go into it in too much detail today. So what we could do is when we've got some data in JavaScript, we could post back to the server by changing the URL and setting the URL's query string. So that's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to write another piece of code in JavaScript. This time I'm going to say hello world again. And what I'm going to do is whatever the document value is in there,
Don't go back to that.
window.open in JavaScript refreshes the page, reloads the window. So what should happen there is once you've put a piece of JavaScript in, we haven't actually called this function yet, so you can't do it at the moment. So I've called this hello world again just to make life easier. Right, I've added a new link called hello world again, send via query string. And what we can do then is that will then call this function, hello world again, which will just refresh the page completely, sending through the identifier based on what's in text box 1. So I'll just run it, just double check it actually works. There we go, it works. Actually opens in a new tab rather than, because I've not targeted it to self, but it does work. If I also then put and tb equals wow, obviously that means it will actually reset the text box as well because it sees it as part and parcel of the string it needs to send. Is it something like self.open or something like that? Or window dot is it target equals self? I think. Is it comma? Is it self? So let me just. Sorry, I know I'm going off. Target self JavaScript. Window to open. Yeah, it's self. So if you add self, it will then reopen it over the window. Now, what's really useful about this sort of method is that you can actually send it to a completely different page. So instead of sending it to itself as in javaserver.aspx, you can actually create a whole new ASPX page that when you click that link, it goes to that page with a query string attached to it. So you can send information without having to use a server-side information at all.
I was all half and half, joking and half, just let me check it. So, yeah, I've got it out. So, I think, okay, actually what I think we can.
Is everyone okay with that method?
Sorry, just that function.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
you
then
can
it's,
that's
so if I put this and end of the SP, what that
No,
means
these
is just
ones.
to make spaces. Yeah. And and end of SP is non-breaking space. I think there is non-breaking space.
Oh, they make me separate.
Wow, that's what impact is just the space. And it became very useful.
Oh yeah, because breaking space.
We need to have one space at a time. If I put loads of spaces,
Would you recommend to build this again? No, I did not know that.
That's great. Oh, yeah. Josh, what's your email? College?
117.
Oh, they are. 753. I ended up just typing that. Hold on. 117. Yeah. Oh, that's about it. What the hell is your picture?
It's me. I did it name it. I did it to name it differently from what I did before.
It's good that you didn't pass the CC.
That's the CC, not the subscription.
Yeah. But that means that then you can have a section on the page entirely, so that's quite useful system. Okay. But it is an even more useful system yet, but this was the basics before we get to the really complicated stuff. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fun next bit. So, on that note, let's take a 15-minute break before we move on to the fun games that is Ajax. I'm going to need a copy of it, even if nobody else does, before we start this one.